Hello and welcome to another Iceberg video. Today I'm going to rank all of the Animal Crossing villager species into a tier list. I think it's fitting to have this as my 50 subscriber special because my worst villagers video is now the most viewed on the channel. And you know what? If we hit 100 subscribers, I will make a video ranking every single villager. Now for those who have seen my other Animal Crossing videos, you might already know what my favorites or least favorites are, but what about everything else in between? This video will be a little bit more of an unscripted analysis on every species collectively, and it will be in the same order as I did in the other Animal Crossing videos I've made, which means we start with the alligators. And for the alligator villagers, I wouldn't really say they have a whole lot to offer. There are probably two really good ones and one really bad one, and the rest I don't really have a strong opinion on. I would say the species as a whole is fairly average, so I'll put them in C tier. Up next are the anteaters, and you know what? I'm one of those who likes their general design. I like the concept of the long snout and all, and I do think there are some highlights within, like Antonio, Annabelle, and Zoe. There are a couple that have fallen back on me though. Cyrano I had in my very first New Leaf town, and he felt fairly forgettable even there. But Annalise is also someone who's fallen back on me a bit. Some solid villagers within, but again, I'm going to say C tier. Next up, we've got the bear villagers. And I would say this is a more volatile species than the previous two. I mean, Kurt is probably my favorite cranky villager. Ursula has grown on me a lot. Megan's really good. Teddy's really good. But on the other side, you've got the likes of Chow, and there aren't really any good smug villagers in there either. So again, despite multiple highlights, the lowlights really weigh it down, so it's another species going in C tier. Next up are the birds. Again, a lot of highlights within the birds. Most of the guy birds I really like, actually. But I think the main difference between the birds and the bears is that the lowlights are kind of kept to a minimum here. I don't know why Twiggy's the representative out of everyone, but I would say she's really the only bird villager that I flat out don't like. Probably more than half of the rest of the bird villagers I would very much like to have around, so overall, they're going in A tier for me. We've got the bulls up next. No real standouts within this species, but no downright awful ones here either. I mean, there's not really much I could say about them. They're about as C tier as you could possibly get. Now we've got one of the most popular species in the game, one of, if not the largest species in the game, the cat villagers. And to me, they're a prime example of why bigger doesn't always mean better. Some of the cats are really good. Some of the other cats are not good at all. In comparison to the species I have ranked so far though, the cats are memorable enough to be at least B tier. Next up we've got the chickens. Most of them I don't mind. I wouldn't say the highlights are as strong as the birds, but I wouldn't say the lowlights are that bad. A couple of duds within this species, but I would say it's a pretty solid one overall. It's another one going in B tier. Next up, we've got one of the smallest species in the game, the cows. With the 4 cows we have, I would say 2 of them are very good, one of them is about average, and one of them is downright bad. But again, only 4 cow villagers means it can wind up being a pretty forgettable species to a lot of people. I'm just gonna put them in C tier. Next up, we've got the cub villagers, and yeah, I would say this is a pretty fantastic species. There are just highlights upon highlights here. For me, Maple, Pico, and Poncho are probably my top 3, but from there you've got the likes of Blue Bear, Tammy, Murphy. I would say the only bad ones in there are Berold and Chester, but the species overall I would say is excellent. It's one of my top 7, and it's going in S tier. And another species going in S tier is the deer. Again, a lot of fantastic villagers within. Bo, Diana, and Fauna are my top 3, but both of the smug and sisterly villagers are pretty great as well. I feel like the only ones that drag the species down, if anyone, are the newest ones. but almost all of the rest of the deer villager I really would like to have around. Next up are the dogs. I think I actually like the dogs more than the cats here. I feel like if it wasn't for Shep, Mac, and maybe Benjamin, this would contend for my top 7. I think I would take the likes of Cherry, Cookie, and maybe Bones over almost all of the cat villagers. The dogs are going in A tier for me. Next up are the ducks, home to some of my absolute favorite villagers. They've got such a cute general design, some memorable ones within, and there's also just really one duck villager that I flat out don't like. But yeah, it's one of my favorite species. It's another one going in S tier. Up next are the eagles. I would say their general design is really good. Just a bold design all around the head. Apollo makes perfect sense as a representative, even if he's not one of my favorites. Also, it's pretty difficult deciding a least favorite here. I wouldn't say the highlights are super strong, but it's a pretty good species overall. I'll put the eagles in B tier. Alright, on to another really memorable species in the elephants. For those who don't know, Tia and Dizzy were in my very first town, and that's part of what made the elephants as a whole very memorable for me. I've also had Opal and Margie in multiple New Leaf towns since then. All of them are amazing villagers that have shaped my experience with this franchise as a whole, and it's another species that kept their lowlights to a minimum, so overall, they're going in S tier. But now we go from one of the most consistent to one of the most volatile species in the game, the frogs. I think there are some obvious choices in terms of lowlights, but I also do think there are some very solid villagers within. Henry, Lily, and Drift I would say are my top 3. Diva's been growing on me a lot as well, despite never having her before. I would say the highlights have just enough to put the frogs in B tier for me. But now we move on to the goats, and really the first of the relatively bad species in the game. Now there are some good villagers within, like Sherb and Pashmina, and that's about it really. There are some pretty bad goat villagers as well. I would say what hurts this species more though is just a lack of highlights apart from those two. So for me, the goats are going in D tier. Up next, we've got the gorillas, one of the most hated species within the franchise, and yeah, I can see why. I don't like how their butts stick out and how their faces are mostly over-designed here. There are a couple of tolerable ones. Hans is really good. Boone, Pee-wee, and even Caesar I don't really mind for the most part, but there are some awful lowlights here that really overshadow this species. And thus the gorillas are the first ones going in F tier. Up next are the hamsters. A couple of solid ones, a couple of really bad ones, but just a lot of mediocrity. And even with the highlights, I wouldn't say there's really anyone all too special. It's a similar story with the goats, where not a lot of hamsters I really care for, so D tier. And another hated species in the hippos. A fairly small species as well. I think there are only 7 of them. I would say one of them is good, a couple of them are okay, and while a couple of them are pretty infamous, I don't think I would say they're as bad as the gorilla villagers. So despite being another one of my bottom 7 species, I'm gonna be a little bit merciful. They're gonna go in D tier for me. But moving on to the other side of the spectrum, we've got the horses. Mostly led by Colton being in my very first town, but design-wise, they're just generally really good. And there are a couple of other horses that I've never had before, and off design alone, they look amazing. Take for example, Savannah, Elmer, and Annalise. So yeah, this is another excellent species for me. I'm going to put them in S tier. Up next, we've got the kangaroos here. Most of the kangaroos I would say are tolerable. I don't really like the male kangaroos though. I don't think there's anyone too special within the species. I wouldn't say it's a downright bad one either. I think I'm just gonna put them in C tier. Now up next we've got the koalas. Slightly stronger highlights and much stronger lows here. I would say Yuka, Melba, and Sydney are my top 3 for the koalas. But this species also has my least favorite Sistoy villager and my least favorite smug villager, and that's probably the main reason why they're another species going in C tier. Up next are the lions, and yeah, this species is underwhelming. None of the lions really stick out like a sore thumb, but none of them I would say are memorable either. Again, it's the lack of highlights that lets this species down, so they're gonna go in D tier for me. Now, in my other villagers, I talked about the mice before the monkeys, so I'll talk about the mice next here, and yeah, this is one of those species where the lowlights are at their absolute worst. The bad stuff about this species outweighs the good stuff by quite some distance, and for that reason, I'm just going to put the mice straight into F tier. Up next are the monkeys. Some really bad lowlights, and not very many good ones to make up for them. Again, it's not as bad as the gorillas or the mice, but it's kind of close. They're gonna go in D tier. Up next are the octopi, another one of the smallest species, only 4 of them, and I'm just gonna say it straight up, I don't like any of them. I don't like the tentacle design, the constantly open mouths. I feel like in terms of general design, this species is probably rock bottom for me. I don't think there's a single octopus villager I'd really like to have around, and for that reason, they're going in F tier. Alright, gotten most of the lows out of the way, we're now on to the ostriches. A couple of very unique ones here. I would say my top 3 at the moment are Julia, Phoebe, and Rio. I've had Phil a couple of times in New Leaf. He's kind of fallen back on me. Cranston's kind of grown on me. And overall, I would say this species is pretty solid. I'm gonna put them in B tier. Next up are the penguins, another team very close to breaking into my top 7. I think the main reason why I can't quite put them in S tier is because I feel like there are a couple too many that I don't really care for, but the highlights within are pretty excellent. I think this species at least deserves to be A tier. Next up are the pigs, and yeah, I'm not gonna mince words about them. There are some pretty awful pig villagers in here, and really the only noticeably good ones are Lucy and maybe Gala, maybe a couple of others from there, but the highlights just don't make up for the lowlights at all. The pigs are the last species going into F tier. Alright, almost done here. We've got the rabbits up next, and with the rabbits, there are some very strong highlights within, and I would say those highlights outweigh the lowlights by quite a bit, actually. I talked about this before, but a lot of these rabbits were firsts for me in various ways. And for that reason, they're gonna go in A tier for me. Next up are the rhinos, and yeah, I remember not caring for the rhinos at all, maybe apart from a couple in New Leaf. I think there were only, 4 back in New Leaf? I mean, Meringue was already a great villager, but the arrivals of Hornsby and Azalea really helped out this species in New Horizons. I would say they've got enough for me to land in B tier. Next up are the sheep, and yeah, this is an average species for me, I would say. One that's really good, one that's downright awful, and the rest I don't have a strong opinion on. So I'm going to put the sheep in C tier. Next up are the squirrels. Some truly special highlights here, and only a couple, maybe just one squirrel villager I would say is downright bad. Again, it's not just design-wise, but some villagers have been pretty memorable for me. It's a larger species that is able to stand out by being just a little bit more consistent. The squirrels are going into S tier. Next up are the tigers, and I would say this is the only species where I just downright like every single one of them. And for that reason, they're going into S tier as well. I can't quite put my finger as to why this is one of the most consistently good species out there. I would say it's 2 things. Having Claudia on my very first New Leaf town, and the general design, I would say, is very good. And finally, we've got the wolf villagers. I remember I did not care for the wolves back in New Leaf, but as a whole, this species has grown on me, and there are enough highlights to take note of. I don't think it's a standout species, but I do think it's a good one overall. B tier. And that's the tier list. Let me know if there's anything you really disagree with. And if you want me to make more tier lists like these, then let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you guys enjoyed, feel free to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And I'll talk to you in the next video.